can watch the miraculous culmination of comedy, conservatism, Christianity, combining in a cacophony of clarity. Can that happen? And can it happen tonight at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time for your viewing pleasure? Is it possible it can get any better than this? Yes, it really is. But unfortunately, you're here, you're stuck, and apparently your life needs to find an alternate route. But since you're here, let's have some fun. This is Brad Stine Has Issues. That is my son Wyatt. And this is the theme song that gets your heart jump-started. Whitey, pooh. He was not going to be shut out for the second time, Wyatt.
I saw it.
You saw it. I laughed. You know the guy was sweating bullets. You know he was going, is it possible that they're going to try to stick me to second, third, or as you said, the bronze medal? Not this time, saith Nick Kress.
He has been training for this moment.
Oh, you know that. He has got a little dumbbell for his finger to press enter. That's what he's got. So he's got power coming. This is God's Comic Brad Stine, comedian, podcaster, author, magician, sleight of hand expert, actor, writer, and what else am I? Father. You know, this guy right over here is my son, Wyatt Leroy Stine. He's a great, great son. He's my sidekick, and he came from my loins. Listen.
You know, I realized you never, in that whole shebang of all the things you all, I don't think you said podcast stall. Did you?
Oh, I think I said podcast.
Did you?
Maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't. Well, but if I didn't, let me say it now. This is God's Comic Brad Stine. This is Brad Stine Has Issues, brought to you by Christian Podcast Central, a place to go if you want to centralize all of your podcasts and watch them in one fell swoop, as what the kids call, what do they call it when you watch a bunch of them in a row?
Binging?
Binging. The kids call it binging. See why I spoke to a kid? He knows the answer. He knew what it was called, binging. Why? Because he binges. Why? Have you ever binged?
That's a good question.
No, it isn't.
Actually, yeah.
Simple
actually,
question.
No,
Basic
I did.
question. Couldn't have been easier.
I have.
What did you binge on?
So, in college, I decided to actually watch some shows that I'd always, wanted to watch, but never had the time. And, what better time to do it when then there was literally nothing else going on in your life.
What did you binge, son?
Not the kind of stuff you'd expect.
Well, why don't you just finally spit it out? Give me one example of something you binged.
Okay, so Actually, you wouldn't know this.
Tell me the name of the program you binged.
I'm trying to think. There's a lot of them. I'm trying to think of the one specific
Just
one.
any. I don't even care if it's not specific. Just give me a name. I didn't know it was going to be complicated. He knows he binged. He knows he did numerous binging, but he can't remember one thing he binged, which means the binging was irrelevant. The good news is he can re-binge, and it'll all be brand new to him because he can't even remember what he binged in the first place. Wyatt, what has happened to you? And have you had a blow to a head? Have you had some kind of...
That's what it was. That's right.
Yeah?
An entire bottle of vitamin gummies.
Oh, you binged a bunch of vitamin gummies.
I wanted to test the notion I'd been told that those things are useless.
Okay, and?
I didn't die of vitamin overdose, so I'd say it's probably accurate.
Were there Flintstones?
No. I was a poor college student. You think I could afford the good stuff?
No. Let me guess, they were made of ramen.
Kroger brand, bottom of the barrel.
They were made of ramen?
Yeah, congealed ramen.
Ah, indeed,
Yeah.
congealed ramen. Well, hey, folks, for those of you who've never tuned in before and have seen numerous clips of mine, Brad Stine, God's Comic, all over the internet and YouTube and whatnot, Facebook and Instagram and whatnot. You know what happened, Wyatt? A lot of people that when Elon Musk bought Twitter, a lot of conservatives said suddenly thousands and thousands of people have shown up following me. I don't know what happened, but apparently they've taken off the restrictions, the choke points, and they're getting it back. So I jumped to my Twitter page, couldn't wait to see how my thing blew up. Nobody changed. Apparently, I just sucked all along. Nobody wanted me. But I will say this.
Nobody wanted to tell you because you look so happy when you're excited about something.
I did, because I was hoping that maybe I was been choked out, because that means I was conservative, worth noting and worth, censoring, and I guess not. But here's the thing. My Instagram blew up. So, I mean, for me, I got like 13,000 followers. Well, I had maybe 5 or before that. So I don't know why Instagram. Is Instagram owned by Twitter?
I think, isn't Instagram Facebook?
I don't know. Is it?
I don't know. They keep buying each other when it's impossible to tell who owns who.
Quit buying each other. Right, Wyatt?
I mean, at some point, it's just going to be one corp that owns them all.
Listen, I got to say hello to some of the folks. I already said Nick Kress, hello. Pat Ken, I don't know him. Is he a new guy, Wyatt? Pat Ken? Pat Ken or Ken Pat. You could say either one. Wyatt, is he new? There's Karen. She's third. She's come in the bronze. Clara Beatty's there. Hey, Brad. Clovis Jones. Hi, Clovis. Good evening from Leesburg, Florida. Hello. Hello from Louisiana, Preston. Ted Wright. Hey, White and Brad. You too, I reckon. Dusty Wilhelm's here. Louis Luan. Hey, Brad. Thank God for you. Yes, thank God for me, White. Isn't that what you say every day when you wake up and think, I could have had any dad, but God gave me me?
I actually, at this point, I'd rather say thank God to the audience, because looking at the analytics of this stream, we have, as from the beginning of this podcast to right now, we have made a grand total of 4 cents in stream ads.
We've done what?
We've made 4 cents in ad revenue.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Since this specific podcast started.
Hey, wait. Paula Faye Marie Rauchi's here. You know what she's missing?
Who?
Another name.
Oh, I was hoping we'd get
Rebecca
the 5
David
cents.
here. Listen, Nick Kress, I'm sweating. Got to work late tonight, so I have to catch the replay. All right, fine. But at least you got in first, Nick. You couldn't let that rest, could you? Knew had to be Mr. Look at me. Nick's up front. That's why they call him Saint Nick. Stan Simpson there. Hey, Brad, what's new? This podcast. Rebecca Daly Dwyer. Hi, White. By the way, Rebecca Daly Dwyer never says hi to me. She always says hi to you, White. Why is that?
Because she's speaking to the talent.
Ah, nice. Stephanie LeBlanc. Audio is delayed.
Yeah, I saw that too, but I haven't seen anyone else complaining about that, which means fingers crossed it's not on our end.
Well, we only have one person complain, and that was Stephanie LeBlanc. And I don't know. Do you know who Stephanie LeBlanc is?
No. So was it really that important? I mean, if Nick was complaining,
it's not important. But
then that would be like like DEFCON 1.
No, I'm just saying she complained.
Yeah.
Audio was delayed.
Yeah.
That's all I said. I said,
do you know who? Into it, but,
I said, do you know who she is?
No, I do not.
Yeah. Do you want me to tell you?
Please do.
She's your cousin.
Which one?
She's your cousin from your aunt. Well, your great aunt, actually, Shirley, who has passed away, unfortunately, but she was your grandmother's sister, and that's her daughter.
Wow,
so how about that?
I could not follow you. Honestly, that whole like cousin, aunt stuff always gone over my head. I don't get it.
I know. I know. Hey, look what Con Boyd said.
What do you mean you know?
Why everything goes over your head? We've established that years ago.
Hey! I'm not that short.
Nick Kress, hi. So you just showed up to be first, and then he goes, absolutely. So they've got their own little banter going on. Is that really fair for Nick and Karen to have their own banter when this is my show, using my show, my energy, my resources, so they can have their little spat together?
Well, yeah, they're the talent.
Good point. All right, Tinsel Sizemore's here. You do have issues, Brad. Yes, I do. Ricky Kirkman showed up. Roger Riggle. I've binged on a gallon of chocolate ice cream. Hey, who hasn't? You're killing me, Smalls. Garden boy, that's good. Ricky Kirkman's here. Anybody else? Clark Berg, Jim Todd. Anybody else? Mike Blankenship, Roger Regal. I was on second in Express, best I've ever done yet. It's hard to get past him. I'm telling you, that guy is good. Who else has shown up here tonight? Max Raymond Purdue, the Silly Gooses. Yeah, that would be us. And anybody else that is I haven't mentioned yet. Emily Smith. Mike Katz account gained a bunch. She updated her plans for world domination. There we go. That's good. I just paused for a fact. I was using a cat joke. Instagram is owned by Facebook. Okay, well.
Told you. Knew it.
Okay, thank you. John Christopher Wells is here from Waxahachie, Texas. Scott Campbell's here. Chris Grammer, Brian Oberson might have mentioned him. Pat Ken's still here. No, I watch every week. Okay, Pat, I just don't remember seeing your name, but I'm glad you're here. Glad you showed up again. Did Elon allow Trump back on Twitter? I think he probably would have. I don't know if he wanted.
I don't think he owns it for another like 6 months or something.
Is that what it is?
Well, that's what I heard. But honestly, who knows what to believe?
Wyatt, you know Bobby Sacco?
No.
Well, he said that I'm the truth. That's all I got to say. Just want to let you know that Bobby knows his business. Sean Sirik's
yeah,
here.
you're the truth, but I'm the talent.
All right? Look, how many times are you going to milk that? 3 times?
About as much as you milk loins. How about that?
Look, Clark Berg said out of sync earlier, but fine now, and it is kind of going crazy. So Lori Weens is here. David Vanoy finally showed up. Thank you. Michael Gelinio. Honey Bread and White by Donald Judson. Barbara Duvall's there. Augustine Arbikech. That's an interesting name.
I'm sure that's how you pronounce that.
Yeah. Been missing in action. I'm back. Things are looking and sounding good. That's Karen Rochelle. Yes, they have. You've been missing all the good stuff we've been doing. Well, look, I am excited to be with you guys tonight because it's been a while. Last week I was here, and it was fun. It was good. We talked a lot, and we talked so much with Rick Green that I thought we got to bring him on again. And listen, I'm not trying to make it the Brad and Rick Green show, but he's such a great guest because there's so much happening with the Supreme Court, so much happening with the Constitution, with the First Amendment, with the Second Amendment, with all the amendments, with the whole way that we are given our rights as Americans. And as you know, that's what I care about. That's what I, use my podcast to talk about. First, my faith. Secondly, my American citizenship and my hope to defend this great nation as I think it is, and just to stand for ideas and thoughts that matter to me. And I was thinking about something. What? Have you ever prayed for somebody?
Yeah.
Like who?
Normally family members whenever something's going down, but also...
Nice. Let me ask you a question. Has anybody ever asked you to pray for them or someone, and you said, sure, of course, and then you forgot?
Okay, listen. Me and forgetting go together about as well as... I had an analogy, but I forgot it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was wondering, if you tell somebody you're going to pray for, wouldn't it be better to... Somebody say, would you pray for it? You said no. Then say yes and not. Because one is honest, but rude. The other one is a lie.
Well, not necessarily. It would only be a lie if you said yes with the intention of not doing it.
Okay.
Simply if I told you about something and then you forgot it, you didn't. Nobody lied in that case. It was a simple lack of remembering.
So what would be the term if you didn't lie? And I guess you're right. To forget something isn't necessarily a lie because your intent was to do the thing.
Yes.
So that a lie would be yes, but knowing I'm not going to. But it would be it would be rude. It would be insensitive. It would be.
The thing about rude and insensitive is they also imply some malicious intent behind it.
Do you think everybody that's rude thinks they're rude, or they think they're just standing up for themselves because they don't give a crap what everybody thinks?
In that scenario, they are still making the conscious effort to do it. It
Be
may
rude?
be under the false pretense that they are in the right.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, they are still making the choice to do it, and that's what makes it rude or obnoxious.
Well, here's my premise. Somebody comes up to you and says, hey, will you pray for my mom? She's really sick. Mm-hmm. And you say, yes, I will. You forget. A week later, the person comes back up to you and said, hey, how are you? You say, not so good. I said, hey, how's your mom? He said, she didn't make it. She passed. And then he said these words, apparently, she was one prayer short.
That sounds like the premise to a terrible, cheesy, what genre of movie would that even be? But like a Lifetime movie,
okay.
You know? It sounds like that kind of premise.
Right.
Speaking of which, right after the screenplay, let's send it out. Who knows? Maybe we'll make something
out
of it.
But wouldn't that be terrible if they said they died? It's like they were one. God came to me in a dream and said she was one prayer short, and it was you.
Like if you had definitive proof, you were the only person who could have possibly changed that situation.
Yeah.
I'd say you'd probably feel kind of bad. But if I were in that situation, I wouldn't be so much sad, so much as in awe of the stars really aligned for that one, didn't they?
You know what Karen said? She says it's best to stop right there and pray for them, with them if you're prone to forget. Now, you know Karen doesn't do that. She just said that to make herself look good on paper. You know who she's trying to impress?
Nick Kress.
Nick Kress,
yeah.
St. Nick. So, Karen, thank you for your input. Obviously, we appreciate it, but we know. We know.
I mean, come on.
Nobody stops in the middle of Walmart and prays for the person right there. They wait till they get home to forget.
Yes. Nobody forgets the moment of.
Yes.
It's not courteous.
But you know what Kelly Morris said? She says, I usually just pray right then. And by the way, I've done that sometimes. I prayed for people right away because I figure, what are we waiting for? Somebody says, pray for me. It's like, okay, let's pray. If prayer is real, if it's powerful, if you're connected to the divine, and it's allowing you to help them, somebody facilitate just to know that you're supporting them, that there's power in that. If that's what you believe, what are you waiting for?
Well, here's my thing. Why is there any intrinsic disadvantage to waiting? If prayer really is powerful and it can produce miracles, who cares when you do it and where and who cares when you do it, or let's see, there's where or there's one other thing.
Will you guys do me a favor and pray for Wyatt's brain?
No,
right now. I don't mean right now. I don't mean say you're going to pray not, so that he doesn't show up next week and he's completely befuddled.
Basically, what I'm getting at is the effectiveness of prayer determined on when you do it or where you do it? Or is it like Wi-Fi? Well, if you're using it, it does give you internet, but it's not as good as a hard linked connection. Like, is laying hands and praying at the moment more potent than long distance praying?
I don't think it makes a difference as far as prayer is a prayer, but certainly, if somebody said pray and you did it right there and you touched them, they're going to feel a connection. They're going to feel like somebody's loving on them right there in real time.
Probably because they are. At that point,
because they're feeling a tactile stimulus, and they're praying, and it just shows a kindness, a boldness, it shows a empathy that you're not embarrassed to be seen. I just thought the idea that she didn't make it, she was one prayer short, was funny. It's a funny premise.
Again,
is there a joke there? Is there a joke?
The whole premise could be a good idea for a Lifetime, I don't know, rom-com? I don't know. That's what they do, right?
Should we call the rom-com One Prayer Short?
That actually sounds like the name of a Lifetime movie. One Prayer Short. Oh, I can see it now. Working on that screenplay.
Hey, Wyatt, you could even binge it. Boom! Call back. That's why I'm the comic. That's why he's the sidekick. That's why I've got the mic.
I noticed
that's why he has the button.
You haven't called yourself the talent.
Implying
that I still am.
I haven't called myself the talent because that would be rude, obnoxious, pride-filled, and very, very accurate. Well, folks, last week when we were talking about the different subject matter, and I brought on Rick. We had just finished a 15-day tour throughout Texas. Wyatt didn't go with me because Texas frightens Wyatt because it's very big. No. And Wyatt is extremely agoraphobic. And so he is frightened by crowds. He's frightened by ponds. He's frightened by boots.
Can I get
and buckles.
More than edgewise?
Go ahead.
You said I'm agoraphobic?
Agoraphobe.
So I'm afraid of being mauled by a bull?
No, agoraphobic.
I get it. I'm afraid of Californian politicians.
No, I don't think either one of those clever, off-the-cuff responses work. My frightened reality is you don't know what agoraphobic means, and that really would bother me if you don't know that agoraphobic is a fear of crowds.
Oh, now my next guest title. Yeah, but the real reason why I didn't show up is because somebody had to keep the show running.
That's true, and he did. My son ran it. He ran it until his fingers bled. But the reason he has fingers and blood is because he issued from my loins, and I created him from whole cloth.
I ran the stream everywhere but into the ground.
Amen, my
That's
son.
the one place you don't want to run.
Well, listen.
Surprisingly, since that's the only place you can run.
For those of you who are on stopping by for the first time, and maybe it's because, and I always assume it's because of the comedy that you saw on the internet, this is my podcast where it's just me being me. I'm a normal guy, regular guy, not great, not super funny, not super not funny, not funnier than anybody else, not less funny. Just this is me doing me, being the best me I can be. But here is where I talk about real things that really matter to me. And I feel like it's something that last week I was wrestling with this idea of why am I here? What am I trying to do? And it's clearer and clearer and clearer to me that I'm here to fight for my faith and for it to be defended in the public sphere, which also means the defense of the First Amendment, which is also a defense of the Constitution, which is also a defense of natural law, which is also a defense of God-given rights, which is also a defense of God. So this is who I am. This is what I believe. You might stick around because you might find it intriguing. You might not. You want to tune up. Don't really care. I'm not here to please you. I'm here to do what I do. Please God, I hope. And if it's interesting, so be it. But that being said, over the last number of years, I put out a bunch of monologues, what would be normally considered the opening monologue, like you see on what the old Daily Show with Jon Stewart. I don't know if who the guy is now that does the Daily Show. I don't remember. Is it Trevor Noah?
Yeah, I think it's Trevor Noah.
And I think he does a monologue, and most of them do to start, as well as Bill Maher does his little monologue and everything. So I started doing that, and it was called Brad Stine Has Issues, and that became this podcast, and I renamed the podcast Brad Stine Has Issues from The Brad Stine Show because I thought it was a funny name, and I liked it, so I wanted to just sort of combine the two together. But there's numerous monologues out there of me talking about things and ideas that mattered to me that I thought needed a discussion. They belong on a podcast or a television show as a opening monologue to deal with an idea that I'm here grappling with, and that's exactly what I'm doing. What's interesting is this particular monologue was done a couple of years ago, but it dealt with the idea of a very, very hot, controversial, fragile, difficult, lightning rod of a topic. Yeah. And I'm talking about abortion. Now, of course, we're going to discuss that in just a few minutes, as I will be doing an interview with Rick Green about everything that's taken place with SCOTUS, with the leak, and really the idea of abortion and what this would mean if the Alito draft that was leaked is the final word on Roe, because it will be the end of Roe, which is interesting, but that's not necessarily bad if you believe in pro-choice, and it's not necessarily good if you're grateful that it's gone. Abortions will still be legal. Abortions will still happen in America, but the Roe, the forcing of every state to have to provide abortions, even if they detest it, that will be what is stricken down, which is what should have happened from the first place. They had no right, the Supreme Court in 72, to make all the states obey something that the citizens were not interested in. That is what the entire concept of Alito's element of where he constructed his argument was the idea that it was a bad ruling all along. And many people, including more liberal judges, have said it was a bad ruling from the get-go. It was strictly ideologically driven, and it was the court, as my friend Rick Grins calls it, the court-stitution, not the Constitution. But we are here to help assemble a militia of the mind, where we arm ourselves to defend ourselves, our freedoms, and everything within them. So that's what we're going to kick off tonight with Wyatt. I'm going to show them the monologue that was a few years ago. Again, God has been preparing me for this day and age in America, because so many of the things that I did a long time ago, because I felt like I wanted to talk about them, now are prescient and happening right now in America. So we're going to talk about that when we go talk to Rick Green. But first, I'm going to give you a nice perspective of the idea of pro-choice or pro-life, and a way to think about it that you might find interesting. For some of you, it might give you some weaponry. For some of others, it might give you something to be angry about. But whatever it does give us, it gives us free speech and something to explore. That's very important. So Wyatt, if you would, hit pro-life versus pro-choice. Hey, it's God's Comic Brad Stine, and today we're going to keep it light and discuss if we indeed have a right as a society to kill a baby. Okay. Good news is, if you're pro-choice, well, you can choose not to watch. Otherwise, come on in. If we were to distinguish between what would make up the top 3 most divisive areas in America between competing worldviews, this one will be right in there jockeying for position. I'm, of course, talking about abortion. It is so divisive that it even distinguishes between how each adherent is labeled. It isn't, I'm pro-abortion and I'm anti-abortion, but instead we're actually categorized as I'm pro-life, which by that term alone would logically seem to include everyone, and I'm pro-choice, which again would seem to be the choice of anyone with a brain cell. Matter of fact, if you were to evaluate which of these terms would seem to resonate with the very nature of the American DNA, it would be the protection of my choice. I mean, choice is basically what is essentially described in the First Amendment in regards to protection of religious liberties. As I have discussed in other episodes, the first line of the First Amendment is literally the most important guaranteed right in America, because it constitutes your freedom of conscience. It references your religion, but religion can be broadly interpreted to mean whatever you hold most sacred, and what it is that drives your behavior and your principles. The Constitution guarantees my right to choose to believe and behave however I choose, whether you agree with me or not, like my choice or even hate it. But guess what? Too bad. Welcome to true liberty. On the other hand, though, is the term pro-life. Now, this phrase doesn't seem to imply its connection to the Constitution, because it's literally enshrined there, right? We find these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, amongst which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The reason abortion is in a unique category when it comes to our rights, though, is because it's the one and only right demanded by a segment of Americans that literally, if implemented, causes another American to have to pay with their lives the choice of another American without any recourse to objecting or even to be protected and advocated for with legal counsel. So, ironically, every debate about abortion has one thing in common. It's always debated between humans that weren't aborted. You have to get out of the womb before you're able to consider if people still in the womb are actually people at all. Of course, the other criteria is that you have reached a point of a developed, mature, educated mind that gives you the ability to be able to debate the abortion question anyways. Now, remember, every advocate for abortion was given the dignity of life, so as to have the opportunity to safely grow up and be a human, to eventually reach a place of cognizance in which inductive and deductive reason and logic could be implemented. We don't, for example, ever say that, well, since you're only 6 years old and can't effectively debate the abortion issue with a professor of law, we should then have the right to not only ignore you, but we might just kill you, since you don't measure up to the rest of us intellectually. No. Humans have always realized that humans start their lives at the beginning and stop their lives at the end. Each moment is equally important and is just the phase of life they happen to be at the moment. See, we've honored the idea of gradations of human development up until we decided that abortion was necessary if a woman was going to be able to be equally free to shirk her moral and civic duties as a parent and human, like men have done throughout the centuries. In other words, abortion allows women to behave like jackasses, exactly like the guys. There's equality for you, folks. One of the unusual phrases I hear from pro-abortion folks is the phrase, no one's pro-abortion. They believe abortion should be legal. They believe abortion should be accessible. They believe anyone that has an abortion shouldn't feel bad about it or feel shame. And they don't want the government stepping in and telling a woman that she can't have an abortion. All this, they say, while not being pro-abortion. Kind of like buying the merchandise, the T-shirts and the hats of a sports team to wear around, but you're not really a fan. You're sending mixed messages, mixed signals. I don't know if there is an issue in America that causes otherwise normal, nice people to literally lose their mind when it comes to inconsistency and behaving in a moral way. The amount of hoops jumped through, the amount of linguistic gymnastics required to somehow justify people's position for abortion without acknowledging what abortion does to another human being is staggering. But there's a good reason for that. It's because any normal person knows that it's a baby's life at stake that forces them to live in a world of denial in order to survive their conscience's annoying habit of reminding them that babies actually prefer to be left intact until they get to come on out here and join us in all the fun. Normally, when it comes to abortion, the typical tactic is to find another cause to champion and then kind of include abortion as an afterthought. For example, people will say, I don't want the government to tell me what I can do with my body. Have you ever hear someone use that phrase? I'll bet you $1,000. They do, on the other hand, want the government to tell me what I must wear a mask in public. You know, what to do with my body. How much fossil fuels I can burn with my body in a vehicle, or how important it is for the government to forbid my body from using plastic straws, what size beverage I'm allowed to drink, and for God's sake, will the government please make everyone aware that I can use any bathroom I choose based on how I'm identifying that day. Yeah, it's crucial the government tells me everything I can and cannot do with my body unless it involves a baby's body. That's where I draw the line to when the government can intervene. Oh, unless the government wants to tell people they must allow my body to get an abortion. You can and must step in there, government. Just not the other way around. Hard truth that Americans have already reached since Roe v. Wade and the advancement of science with sonograms and understanding genetics is that every human in history at the moment of conception was fully human. A human that contained every chromosome and genetic trait to become a fully functional adult human was there from day one. All those of us on the pro-life side of the aisle is asking is to at least be intellectually honest with that reality. You still might think killing a baby is a woman's right. But at least the debate is being had with this fundamental idea at the forefront. When does a human being have the right to kill another one? Not a comfortable conversation to have, is it? Guess what? It shouldn't be. This is God's comic, Brad Stine. And Lord have mercy, PC free is liberty. I know that was a heavy subject, but that's part of what I'm about. Yeah, you can still come see me live at Unapologetically American doing my comedy. But you know what, guys? If you would just like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Brad Stine Has Issues. If you would go on my Facebook fan page and follow and like, I can build up a bunch of people, let you know when I'm going, when a new episode's about to come. Please share it and bring it all throughout this nation, even around the world. It's Judeo-Christian values and culture thrown into a simple rant. Folks, I need your help. Subscribe right now. You'll be better for it. And that if I can tell you what words you can say, what words you can't say, if I'm telling you you can't think this way, or you can't talk this way, you can't act this way, you can't behave this way, I control you, I own you. Well, that's really what is happening, and as with all of the big debates of very important issues, is that people want to control terminology and redefine ideas or words or definitions so that it can mean what they need it to mean, not what it's supposed to mean. And that's why I thought it was important to make a discussion about what they will call a baby. Let's call it a fetus. Let's call it a clump of cells. Well, guess what? You are a clump of cells. I'm a clump of cells. They just happen to be formulated into a format that allows me to have made it to a fully formed adult. But I didn't used to be. I used to be, you know, in my 40s, and then in my 30s, and in my 20s, and in my 10s, and in my teens, and then I was in my mom's womb, and then I was younger, and then I was conceived. Every element of that is a human being. I mean, think about how foolish and ridiculous this concept is. When they say, well, it's not a human. Well, what is it? Of course it's a human. You're not going to get an art. I did a joke about this once where I made a whole fun of the idea of expecting. Well, we're expecting. Expecting what? Expecting a child. Well, what else would you expect? I mean, does that ever happen? It's like, you know, what? You had a weasel. Okay, didn't see that coming. Doesn't happen. We know that a human being is going to conceive another human being. Yes, that human being is going to be super small. So again, this is a class system fight, because you're saying this person is not of the same class and worth of us, because they are not able to go out and do their own grocery shopping and feed themselves, take care of themselves. This is height phobia, because they're super tiny, really, really short people. Let's mock and make them less than human just because they happen to be super short. Eventually they're going to get so big, and then they're going to get old, and guess what? If you get really old and decrepit, you might almost even lose your faculties, your cognitive ability to even take care of yourself, and you almost regress back to that baby that couldn't take care of itself, which means you should be able to kill that old guy now based on your premise. And of course, in places like Oregon, you can. See, that's what happens when you dehumanize a human. You can do whatever you want. But again, remember, as I said in the clip, the only people that ever get to argue abortion are people that weren't aborted. The only people that ever get to decide and contemplate the idea of abortion were people who were conceived by a male and a female and then grew into adulthood, where they could use their cognitive abilities that had grown and evolved over the span of their life, which is what's going to happen to every one of us from day one of conception to the last day your heart beats and you leave us. So this is really, the argument isn't really real. Clearly it's a baby. Everybody's known that. But here's what was interesting. In part of the leak, one of the things that they complained about was that Alito had referenced, and Saturday Night Live actually did a joke about this. He'd referenced, I think, from the 1300s, perhaps English rights. I don't remember. I didn't really look into where he got it from. But he was showing how even back in the 1300s, people said abortion was murder. It was wrong. It wasn't true. And they mocked him. See, we're progressed past those things. We're way beyond that. We don't need these old medieval ideas. We've progressed beyond killing babies? What? See, I've made this clear to you guys for years. Progressivism is a misnomer because it presumes progress. It says, I'm progressive. I'm always looking to progress. Whatever they decide to do, whatever they decide to undermine that has lasted the test of time, they consider it progress. Based on what? Your perspective? If we know that something has progressed for years and years and years and years and years and years and it works, then how did your progress of redefining it, deconstructing it, and making it into your own image, how is that progress? It isn't. It's your subjective opinion that you always give it terms like progress or evolving or a living, breathing document. These are terms they give to give weight to their lack of weight of their idea of believing something is progress before we got there, which means we don't know it's progress. That's them simply projecting that onto what they want to be true. But people in America are stupid enough to fall for this nonsense. They don't call them out on them, they don't hold them accountable, and they don't do their research and study. And that's why I wanted my podcast to be something that could give you weapons and information about getting better at defending what you believe is true and what is true when it comes to actual facts. Like, for example, when you get pregnant, you have a baby inside you. So that's really what we've been discovering, and I wanted you to understand how the progressives despise anything that's happened before them, anything they didn't think of, anything that has stood the test of time, that they can't control, they consider must be archaic, destroyed, and that progress will allow us to just rechange this into something completely and utterly different. But I also want you to think of the idea that progress despises wisdom, because one thing that wisdom is defined by is it has stood the test of time. Wisdom shows something that has worked and has been successful. That's one of the ways that they rediscover how to even contemplate a ruling like Roe in 72 that maybe needs to be overturned. And one of the ideas is, did it work? In the long run, did it work? And the problem, the truth is no. It's caused constant division, constant antagonism, constant friction, because there were too many people in America who said, I'm not going to allow you to kill babies and not say something. So it wasn't ever going to go away. We're not going to suddenly say, oh, well, I guess this is the law of the land, so yeah, go ahead and butcher babies. We're not going to do it. Nobody's going to do that actually believes that human beings are intrinsically valuable. So, once again, the Judeo-Christian idea of intrinsic value to something is why we even have this argument. That's why they are fighting against the Catholics on the bench that they say are injecting their religious belief system into it. Listen, you who are an atheist, secular humanist, are injecting your religious beliefs of immorality, amorality, because it is a moral stance. You think it's moral to butcher a baby. And we see in these women saying, hey, I want to have, one woman actually said, I want to have sex with whoever the guy was that leaked this so that I could have his baby and cut its head off and butcher it in abortion and be grateful for it. That's how demonic this is. This is sick as it can get. So I thought it would be very prudent to bring Rick Green on, because Rick is an expert on the Constitution, and I wanted to talk about the leak. I wanted to talk about his take on how this ruling looks like it might be coming out, and also just really what does it mean for us as Americans, and most importantly, states' rights, which is really where this has taken this, is the states get to decide what type of state they want. It is a community process, which is what the founders wanted from the get-go. I've told you this before. The First Amendment guarantees that you can have a religious belief inculcated into government system with tax dollars as long as it's not by law. That's what it says. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or forbidding the free exercise thereof. That's all it says. So if you want, I've said this before, Jesus Town, using taxpayer dollars to have Jesus all over the world, and every time you go to public school and want to sing Jesus songs, you can do that if that's the community's standard. Some people may not like it, but if that's what you vote on and that's what the school council allows, it can be done. You can't do it by law. That's when you breach the Constitution, and it shouldn't be by law. and you can have atheist town and do the same thing too. You just can't make it by by law. That's all that it says. Congress shall make no law respecting these establishments of religion or forbidding the free exercise. And of course, they continue to try to relinquish the free exercise thereof by law, which by calling it unconstitutional, they're saying there's a law against this. Lie, completely mistaken, and completely designed to destroy our freedom. So let's get to a guy who's an expert on this, much more so than I am, Rick Green, and let's discuss this and give you guys some really deeper insights into what's going on from this Christian conservative perspective, so you can have some weaponry to take out into the marketplace. So Wyatt, I think I'm going to have to switch over to the thing.
Yeah.
All right, so
lift has got
because
on, so.
is Rick there?
Yeah. He's
So
on.
we're going to have to get off, and I'm going to have to get off of the great mic that you guys paid for, and cut off the great cans that you guys paid for, and I got to come over here and try to get over here so that we can try to get. Well, as you can see, we have switched over from my very, very expensive camera, thousands and thousands of dollars, plus I had to barter with hand-woven blanket, 3 hens, I had shekels, pirate booty. So I do lots of work with bartering, whatever I need to do. And when it turns out that I need to do an interview with my good friend Rick Green about the Constitution, the government is so onto us and so destructive of trying to just shut us down that we have to go to the secret camera that's built into my computer. And that's why it looks crappy, but at least you can see us and listen to us. And maybe this time our lips will sync. So, and that sounds a little odd, but still, it's a weird phrase. Anyways, how you doing, Rick?
I am very nervous about syncing with your lips, and also you talking about your pirate booty. This is going to be a weird one. I can just feel it. This is going to be a weird show. Yep.
It's going to be very, very weird. But you are out of sync, actually, now that I see it, which is unfortunate.
Already?
We'll see if it already. So I don't know. Who knows why I'm telling you, I never realized until this second, Rick, it's the government. The government is on to us, and they are screwing of all the podcasts in the world with millions and millions of viewers. Wyatt?
Yours is the one they're most afraid of.
You're going to have to put up the photo, I think, because it went
Just
out of sync. Anyways, it's no sweat, because hearing you is more important than looking at you.
You
which is
just don't want to have to look
problem.
at me. I know how you are. Yeah, you're smart. You're helping your viewers by not showing me. Yes. Okay.
Well, anyways, there's a beautiful, handsome picture of you up, and here we are. So, listen.
Can you just have Wyatt, please? Like, couldn't he have at least put Tom Cruise up or something and said, "This is Rick"?
Oh yeah, he's wondering.
I mean,
if you
that would have been.
Cruise up,
Yeah, come on, Wyatt. Put it at least with
Wyatt's
the Patriot
actually
Academy
seen what he can do. So, but you know what? By the time this segment's over, you might be Tom Cruise. Are you sure you want to go with Cruise, or he's a little dated? How about he could be?
No, man. Top Gun's coming out. He's going to be like,
true.
the 60-year-old hunk for this year. That's going to be,
Amen. Okay. All right. Well, good on you. Well, listen, I always love having you on, and I always appreciate you taking time. I know you're very busy. As a matter of fact, before we get started in this very, very important segment that deals with something that you and I have discussed on many occasions, which is the Supreme Court of the United States. I did want to quickly state that isn't it true that tonight you're starting a new or an enhanced segment of your Back Porch Live? Is there some new crew you've assembled and are teaching some new information? I want to tell all my people, and they can share it and see if we can get some more viewers to tap into you when they're done watching me.
Yeah, man. In fact, now our Front Porch Live we do. It's perfect. Our Front Porch Live we do on Sunday nights. Thank you, Wyatt. I was looking for the one though with in a fighter jet suit. Anyway, okay, it's okay. It's okay. That's still good. I mean, that's how I usually look in the mornings, right there. That's exactly what I look like in the morning.
You're not the only one.
Yeah. So our Front Porch Live we do on Sunday nights on Facebook, and folks can go there. On Monday nights, we do this really cool national class. You've been on with us before. It's a great opportunity for people to meet folks like you. And this next class is going to be with Kirk Cameron. So we're going to do his Campfire Revival program, which is phenomenal. It's right in line with what Patriot Academy does. It's all about digging into the principles. He goes through Marshall Foster's book, The American Covenant. sitting around the campfire with Marshall. It's going to be great. And then we'll have Kirk on live to do Q&A each week. It's actually going to start next Monday, the 16th of May, and we'll go 5 weeks in a row with Kirk. And then folks can sign up to actually host that same course in their home or in their backyard with a campfire or at their church or wherever they want. We're really into equipping people so they can be the force multipliers in their communities. And, hey, folks, watch out because, Brad and I just may come out with some new courses as well where you can laugh and learn and bring people into your homes to do that as well. So I'm just kind of teasing some things there, Brad, because I know our brains are working on something.
Amen. Well, if it takes both of our brains to try to equal one, so I'm hanging in there. But look, you've upgraded.
That's what I look like in the afternoon. So the one before is what I look like in the mornings. This is what I look like in the afternoons. Very good, Wyatt.
That's good.
Thank you.
After you get your aftershave on. Well, so great news about this sort of enhanced information you're putting out, Kirk Cameron, and people can actually ask him questions or comment live, you're saying?
You're trying not to laugh at the idea of me being Tom Cruise.
No, I'm going with it. I'm going with it.
Yes, exactly right. We will have Kirk will be on before we play the videos of he and Marshall, and then after as well to do Q&A, and it's fun. I mean, it's a way to have conversation and ask questions and have kind of some banter back and forth, but then also dive in deep into the issues, kind of like you do on your program. I mean, honestly, what you and I've been doing.
Yeah. So and they catch this on Patriot Academy, or where do they go?
Yeah, the quickest place to go for that Monday night class is patriotacademy.com, and then you can click on the link for the Campfire Revival or American Campfire Revival course.
Perfect. All right. Well, that's all I wanted to know because I wanted people to be able to tap into what you're doing. I mean, you and I are doing these things together, but it's important that we share our friends and fans and family or whatever, because again, we've said this numerous times, it's a grassroots movement for conservatives, Christians, patriots to be able to communicate and try to really educate ourselves and drive home our message as to what we stand for, what we believe in, and what we're willing to fight and die for, which is what has been the American spirit for a couple of 100 years, and we're hoping to maintain it, and hopefully without it becoming violent. But, well, that kind of brings up and launches me into this subject and why I wanted to bring you on, and you're always so gracious to come on. But you are a constitutional expert, and I know that my people really love your insights and so forth, and they really get a lot out of it. So let's talk about this incredibly huge issue that took place, I think, last Monday. So I just happened just after my podcast, so I couldn't comment. But so the Supreme Court of the United States apparently goes back and forth when they're ruminating on something that they have to adjudicate upon. And of course, in this case, it's Roe v. Wade. And there was a leak that Justice Alito had put out kind of his take and basically his way of dismantling Roe v. Wade. So then we come to find out that this is not necessarily the final draft or a final opinion, but it's just his version of what his argument would be to bring to the other justices. Is that how that works?
That's pretty close. It's close to a final draft. So this means that he's got 5 votes for this decision, meaning he and 4 other judges have signed off and said, "Hey, we're with you on this this draft opinion." We don't know that they've all read the entire opinion and said, "Yes, I'm with you on. I don't want any changes. I'm willing to vote with you on exactly how you wrote it or not." That part we don't know yet, but if it holds, if that draft opinion that he wrote holds, and that's ultimately what their final vote becomes, Brad, it's going to be the best Supreme Court decision and written opinion of my lifetime. I mean, he does so much in this decision. It's about a 98-page decision, and he goes through the history of the Constitution, of the role of the court, of why Roe v. Wade was so wrong, not just from allowing abortion in our, or forcing abortion on states, but also just so wrong because of the way that it was decided. In other words, just from a pure jurisprudence, remove the emotion, remove the actual issue, just the process itself. He goes through and explains why this was so wrong for the court to make this decision. So it's masterful, man. I pray that it holds, and that at least most of what he has in there is what they'll ultimately do their final vote on. But to explain again what you were describing, this is a draft opinion, and typically what they do is they take a vote, and they say, okay, well, if 5 of us are for overturning Roe v. Wade in this case, then someone among those 5, has to write the opinion, and Alito's the one that is chosen to do that. And so then he writes the opinion, and somebody on the other side writes a minority opinion. And the majority opinion gets floated among those who are saying, yes, we're with you. And Roberts is probably the only one of the 9 that will probably be looking at both and undecided on whether he's going to go with the majority or the minority until we get closer to the final date. When I say final date, normally this would not be voted on in its final vote and then released to the public until either late next month in June or maybe even early July. I think there's a chance, though, Brad, with this leak, which has never happened in my lifetime, by the way, but with this leak that was designed to create pressure on the justices and riots and all that kind of stuff, there's a chance that the court may just go ahead and say, look, we're just going to go ahead and release it. We're going to go ahead and get this over with so that nobody tries to burn down a justice's house or these protests, all this insanity that they're doing. They're going to protest once the decision's released, but that's different from protesting in an effort to intimidate judges, if that makes sense. So it could come out sooner rather than later, and I hope it does.
Well, I would think that just for their sake, to make a point, they would want to release it immediately. Oh, you guys are going to do this. You're going to try to intimidate us. You're going to try to endanger us and our family when we're just trying to do our job and interpret the Constitution. Well, then here, now let's just get it out there and finish this, and that'll be that. You think they might do that just out of their own, I don't know, hopefully character, to say we're not going to be intimidated and bullied, which is what Thomas said. But the leak itself, you said it's never happened in your lifetime. Has it ever happened before in any case that you're aware of? And what should be the consequences of who is ever discovered that leaked this out? Is it illegal what they did, or is it more an unethical, or is there some statute by which this person could be prosecuted to not only make a point, but hopefully keep that from ever happening?
Yeah, now this part I'm not an expert on, so I'm just going off of what I've read in other news releases and articles and comments from people that are experts in this area. But from what I understand, there's not actually a statute that was violated, and so I don't think there would be any kind of criminal charges against whoever did this. Ethically, absolutely. Fired, absolutely. Probably disbarred? Potentially disbarred. That's exactly what I was about to say. Potentially disbarred. So huge consequences, but not criminal. I don't think that's my understanding. Now, you know how the left is. If this was the other way around, if a conservative clerk to a conservative justice had been the one to release this, they would be twisting some criminal statute, standing on their head, figuring out a way to hold that statute just right so that they could go after them criminally, and probably not give them due process either. They'd put them in the gulag. But I don't think that's going to happen to whoever did this, and we still don't know. I guess. I mean, I know they're investigating. I've heard that some close court watchers, if they think they've narrowed it down to this one particular gal that works for Justice Breyer, but there's no proven evidence. There's no smoking gun yet.
Well, I even heard somebody mention, potentially or theoretically, it could right-leaning clerk felt that this would sort of force their hand and get this decision out before somebody changed their mind. Was that just some guy's speculation trying to make it sound equal, that both sides have their traitors? Or is that possibility?
No, I think you're right. That's exactly what I thought when I saw that accusation. Anything's possible, of course. I would hope that no clerk would be that foolish on the right to think that somehow that's going to preserve the opinion. But anything's possible, man. People do crazy things. But I absolutely think there's so little to gain for anybody on the right on this to leak it early, and everything to gain for the left, that they would have a chance at intimidation, that they would have a chance even at just riling up their base, right? So they see this, and Chuck Schumer in the Senate has basically tried to capitalize on this. They see this as galvanizing their voters to turn out in the primaries across the country and also in November. I don't know, though, man. I think they misread the room here. I think the country is far more pro-life than they think. I think that pro-life voters are more motivated than pro-abort voters. There's the crazy segment, right? I mean, there's those. I mean, literally, they chant "Hail Satan." This is a religion to them. I mean, that group, yeah, they're going to be even more motivated. But they're so small and so few. The majority of the pro-abortion crowd are middle-of-the-road people that they aren't for death. They're not pro-abortion in their minds. They think they're really just for the government not making the decision for people. They rationalize it that way. So this is not going to motivate those people. They're kind of ambivalent, but if they get polled on it, they answer pro-abortion, even though, so I don't see this changing their voting habits or their motivation. On the right, pro-lifers, it's their number one issue. I mean, this is their passion. You and I mean, how many years have we worked on this issue and given and spoken at pregnancy centers, and I mean, we spend a ton of our time and effort on this. I think they're reading the room incredibly wrong, the left, in trying to make this a central issue for the elections coming up.
Well, I do know that of all the hot button issues that we've seen over the last number of years, that this is definitely one that has shifted for younger folks who are pro-life percentage-wise than what used to be 20, 30 years ago, which is unique. Normally things don't go more conservative. They either stay where they are or they go more left. At least the last number of years, that's how life is played out here in America. So that's interesting. But I'm curious about why they are so anti-states' rights. And of course, the one thing I noticed from the left always is they just misrepresent the issue. They'll lie. They'll use bumper sticker terminology, meme-like things, like the bill in Florida where they said, "Don't say gay." And of course it never said that. And DeSantis was brilliant and just saying, doesn't say that, never said that. Where does it say that? And tried to disrupt their use of language to control the narrative and the people's thoughts. So they've discovered that if they can lie and get away with it and it persuades people, why wouldn't you? If there's never an accountability, this is what has been the most difficult for me in the last number of years, is not that people have been done evil and what I consider treasonous and traitorous things towards our nation, but that when they are discovered, there's no repercussions. It's
no
like, I don't understand. Yeah. This is what doesn't make any sense to me. But the one thing that you and I have always sort of really believed was so important and why it was so incredibly crucial that it not be lost and has been is states' rights. I mean, and you are an expert, especially on the founding fathers and the founding era. I mean, if that wasn't maybe the single most debated idea of how they were going to construct this Constitution and what it would mean to be American, in that the states would have their own autonomy that would circumvent the federal government trying to sort of in any way control them. I mean, isn't that basically what was maybe the single most important issue to the founding generation, was states' rights?
Yeah, and I think if these leftists would just stop for a minute and think, this decision is something that they should actually be happy with, because the nation is moving towards pro-life. So if we do to them what they did to us, we make the whole nation follow our position, then abortion is outlawed in all 50 states. This decision at least gives it back to the states, and they can congregate in certain states where they want to keep abortion going, and they will. I mean, I don't think this decision, we're not going to win on abortion in California anytime soon, right? Or Oregon. We may in Washington State. There's some blue/purple states that may turn, but I think you nailed it, man. I think this is, and you and I have talked about this. I think it's the only way the country stays one nation anyway, is if you allow for these individual state decisions on these big issues instead of having, one presidential term, it's the San Francisco cabal and they tell everybody how to live. And then the next presidential term, it's the Alabama cabal and they tell everybody how to live. And I mean, that just can't last. And it doesn't respect federalism. It doesn't respect, as you said, state rights. And to say that, and I get it. Some people hear that, Brad, and they think, oh, well, you're saying then the states should be able to have slavery and that's what the Civil War was all about and yada, yada, yada. And no, we're not saying that. We're saying the states should protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and states don't have the right to do wrong, which, taking that argument down the logical road, we would say, actually, you shouldn't be able to have abortion because you're taking life. But politically, from a practical perspective, you're not going to win that debate right now. You've got to win what you can win, which is the right for each state to decide on their own, and then take this battle to the local level within each state. That's how the founders designed it. They knew we were very different state by state, even when there was only 13 of them. This view that they were all homogenous and everybody was exactly the same, absolutely not true. I mean, people in Boston hated people in Virginia and vice versa. I mean, it was not that different from, New Yorkers and Texans having their tit for tat against each other. And that's not so unhealthy. It's actually healthy because people can go live in a community of interest. They can go live in a place that reflects their values. So I would encourage those, especially liberals, that actually think through things, not leftists that are knee-jerk, it's a cult religion to them. But liberals that are willing to think through these things, I think might end up celebrating this decision before it's over when they see how it's written and they see not just that Roe v. Wade was overturned, but that constitutional governance and state individuality was upheld.
Yeah, well, and that really is interesting because that's what they are fighting or believe they're fighting for is pro-choice. We want pro-choice. And that's kind of what this, at least Alito's version says. Oh, yeah, you get your own choice. This state can choose to have abortion. This state can choose not to. That's pro-choice. And so if you really believe abortion is the single most important issue in your life, there's going to be plenty of states you can move to and abort all you want. So feel free. Now, we'd still have work to do as pro-lifers to go to those states and try to convince those people morally that this needs to stop. But at least the people get to decide. And sometimes the people decide evil things. And sometimes they decide moral things and virtuous things. So that's kind of what freedom really is and choice actually is. So, well, let me ask you about this idea of the way it's being the way that they are trying to persuade this decision not to go through, even though, as we've just discussed, it's actually positive in a way that they haven't actually said Roe is out. They're just saying state's choice. But now they're going to the justices' homes. They're protesting and picketing, certainly seeking to intimidate the judges, which I believe is illegal. I believe there actually is a statute that you cannot try to change a decision of a judge through intimidation or fear or in some respects. Well, there was a pro-life building in Wisconsin that was firebombed. They threw a Molotov cocktail through their window, and they said, if abortion isn't safe, then neither are you. Well, to me, that's a hate crime, and that's domestic terrorism, literally. They are taking somebody's point of view, and they're trying to kill them and destroy them based on how they see the world and how they want to live in this country. So why aren't someone, well, I think I know the answer, but why isn't somebody going in and saying you cannot protest in front of these judges' homes to try to have them change their mind? It's illegal, and I'm going to start arresting you. Is it simply because it's a leftist Biden administration that simply are not going to do that? And if that's true, could the Republicans or someone circumvent that and say, well, whether you do it or not, we're going to file charges against these people? Is that a way that can be done, or does the DOJ, the federal government, have to be the ones that would go file charges like that?
Well, you're spot on. It's a double standard for sure. And actually, that's what it was that I was quoting you this morning on a news program about, is the your line about, it's an insurrection unless you're, out there for a leftist cause. Then it's I'm just exercising my First Amendment rights and I'm defending democracy and whatever it might be. That is definitely the case. I mean, the White House has already essentially celebrated this protesting at Supreme Court justices' homes. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, I can't, normally, no matter which side you're on, you would condemn that and say this is going too far because you don't want it to happen to your people either. And there's some sort of decorum that you would want to continue. So, yeah, it's definitely a double standard. In terms of being able to prosecute, it depends, if it's I don't know the details of that particular intimidation statute, whether it has to be the DOJ at the federal level or can a local DA bring it. I would think a local DA could. I'm assuming this home is in the DC area, which means you probably got a really lousy local DA, even there in Northern Virginia, probably, if they live across the line there. So it could be brought at the local level, possibly a state attorney general level, and then of course at the federal level through the DOJ. It's probably a DOJ issue though, and Brad, maybe that leads to an entirely new effort at the state level for state legislatures to say, we're not going to allow you to do this if there's any proof of intent to change their position, and I'm for bringing attention to public officials if they're doing things that people don't know about, finding ways to bring attention to that. There is not a person on the planet that doesn't know what Kavanaugh's position is and what this opinion was, and I mean, so it is pure intimidation. It has nothing to do with bringing attention to some scandalous, situation, that a court is doing. This is all about, we know you're pro-life, we know you're voting to end Roe v. Wade, and therefore we're going to try to intimidate you. And that's only, and I think you meant this, but when you said earlier that this means that Roe isn't ended, it goes back to the states. It is that Roe v. Wade is ended, which what people need to understand is that Roe v. Wade was not legalizing or protecting a woman's right to choose. It was forcing abortion on states that didn't want to have it. They didn't have to do Roe v. Wade for you to get an abortion in California and some of these other places. If you lived in a state that was okay with abortion, which there was only 3 or 4 at the time the decision was handed down, then you could get an abortion. So Roe is being overturned, and that concept of forcing states to do abortion whether they want to or not, that's what's going away. A right to an abortion is not in the Constitution, and therefore you will have to find some state that will supposedly grant you that right. Which obviously that's not a right given by God. That would now be a government created right that they would be giving you. But Roe v. Wade being overturned by this decision, the new word that will be known for the next couple of decades will be Dobbs instead of Roe. It's going to be Dobbs. And thank you, Mississippi, for helping to lead the way and get this decision to the court so that we could get to this point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's an interesting time in America, certainly. And every time the left wants a decision in any idea or ideology, they've used intimidation tactics. They obviously utilized Antifa during the George Floyd time frame and going after defunding police. They have found that to use rioting, to use intimidation, to use terror, to use violence, they can get away with it. And so why wouldn't they? Anybody that can control power by a strong fist will use it until they are outpunched. So I don't know if and when we are ever going to make some sort of either response as conservatives to defend ourselves from this, or at least a legal element is charging these folks with domestic terrorism and or hate crimes. Certainly when it comes to ideologies, I think that fits the criteria. They're just going to continue to run roughshod over people who are trying to do this by the book. So I don't know. I sure wish there was some price to pay for those who make these decisions so that they would decide if this is the way they want to go.
And you teach on this so well, Brad, just the fact that this tactic that they're using is straight out of the Marxist Marxist playbook. I mean, this is what they've done, for 2 millennia now. And this is what they know they must do in order to win, because they can't win the debates. They can't win the principles. And so they have to control the language. They have to prevent the opposition from speaking. And when even that's not enough, they resort to violence, and they use violence to scare people into doing these things. And hopefully more and more people will see this for what it is. But we're at a critical time, man. And this could be a major win for restoring constitutional principles. It feels like when you read in the Old Testament, the really bad kings that allowed all the chaos and different things, and then their kid or grandkid or whoever takes over, and all of a sudden now they're bringing back the right principles, and they're tearing down the temples to the false gods, and it feels like one of those moments where a new leadership is saying, obviously not Biden in this case, and I'm not for the court making these decisions, but in this case, because of Trump's leadership, it's like a delayed opinion. Because of Trump's leadership and his appointment of those three new judges, and the shift in the court, that now we're tearing down those old temples. We're literally restoring potentially the principles of our nation. I hope I'm not exaggerating that. I hope that's not hyperbole. I really feel like we're at that potential place. Now, granted, we've got absolute crazy people running the White House and Congress right now. So the other two branches are nuts, and the court has been the one that's been nuts for the last 30 years. So this is weird, man. I'm so used to criticizing the court. And it's not about the issue. It's about the process and whether or not they're doing their job and upholding the Constitution. And
that's it. And that's what's been most frustrating to me. I think I told you this. I was at a show years ago with Alan Keyes, and I was talking about, I don't want a conservative justice on the Supreme Court, and I don't want a liberal justice on the Supreme Court. I just want a justice that looks at the Constitution and states, is this constitutional or not? That's all I want. I don't think we should ever be talking about judges as conservatives or liberals. I don't think that should have ever entered into the place, because there's laws that have been established. It's like mathematics. We don't have a conservative mathematician that says 2 + 2 is 4, but the liberal mathematician says 2 + 2 is 5, but it's okay because, hey, that's his opinion. We don't have that. There's hard sciences that we can't deviate from, or rockets end up missing their target and people die. So I just naively, I guess, believe that the judiciary would follow the established law and the principles. And now I realize some things come up that aren't specifically talked about in the Constitution, so they have to figure out, where does this fit? This particular idea. Gay marriage had never been considered, so they wouldn't know how to they'd have to kind of go from scratch and say, where would this fit? I understand that. But I think the fact that we have to rely on conservative justices as opposed to originalists is a problem. And I don't know if that's ever going to be fixed.
Yeah, no, you're right, and that's because there used to be, a much more even divide in the school of thought in the law schools, and but it became entirely dominated by this left wing legal theory of the courts are going to make policy, we're going to make law through the courts, and therefore we must get judges on the bench that are politically lean the way that we are and agree with our issues, regardless of process stopped mattering, jurisdiction stopped mattering, proper role of the court stopped mattering. It was all about the issues and using the court to pass those things. And that's why, even somebody that is what you just described, they're immediately labeled a conservative, even though they're really just a constitutionalist. They're really just saying, I'm just going to uphold the rules. I'm just going to uphold the Constitution and make sure that I'm not legislating from the bench. That phrase, everybody hears that phrase all the time. That means something. I mean, to not legislate from the bench means that you're not going to try to make law from the bench.
Yes, and I will say this, to be fair. Every human being has a presuppositional worldview. Everybody has an ideology. Everybody has a religion. Everybody. Atheist religion is secular humanism, scientism. Everybody has a belief system, the foundation by which they live their lives. So to expect judges to be so able to separate themselves from their own desires and feelings is asking a lot. And I will say, it's not like it'd be easy to do. But, hey, they took on this role. They are given a...
Well, and we're not saying that they separate from their convictions or their beliefs completely, because it takes your beliefs and your convictions to drive your legal theory as well. So it's all mixed in together, no doubt about it. But a true constitutionalist would be willing to say maybe even as Alito has said here, I'm not going to reverse Roe v. Wade and then say that abortion is illegal in all 50 states, because then I would be a legislator making that decision. What I'm going to do is say Roe v. Wade was wrongly decided, and I'm going to reverse Roe v. Wade. And as the Constitution requires, I'm going to give it back to the states, even though I wish there was no abortion, even though my conviction would be that abortion would be illegal in all 50 states. I'm going to follow the precedent and the law and the Constitution itself, and the tradition in America prior to Roe v. Wade, that this decision would be decided at the state level.
Yes, well, and of course, if it does go through, as they say, then I guess it could affect other suits that come behind it if they've made a change as to how things are going to be viewed when it comes to this particular type of problem that Americans are divided on. Maybe it will change some things, and other ideas that normally might have gone left-leaning might go right-leaning. I don't know. I mean,
Brad, honestly, no, I'm so sorry I interrupted you there, but I am passionate about that. I really do think this could be a turning point for federalism and for returning things to the states. And just think of all the issues where the court has intervened in the last 50 years and made something a federal issue that should have never been decided in Washington, D.C., should have always been decided in our individual states. Everything from, I mean, we immediately go to marriage and some of those decisions of the last, 8 or 10 years. But I'm thinking about things like education, healthcare, even Social Security, Brad. Why do we have this behemoth federal system that each state should have been allowed to have? And if you don't like the retirement system in your state, move to another state. Whereas I just watched this series on this guy that conned the federal Social Security system out of $550 million. And the people working in the Social Security administration supported him and buried it and hid it because they didn't want to look bad. I mean, that's the problem with all this massive federal programs. You can't hold people accountable. It's too big. You got to get it back to the state and the local level. And then you can help people and actually truly help them, not just send them a check, and you can reduce the fraud.
Well, I will say this, too, based on what you just said. Alito will have done something very, very unique and difficult and not typical. And that is he will be giving power back to people and relinquishing it from his little conclave known as the Supreme Court. As we know, normally when power is given to a group, whether it's a congressman, senator, governor, whomever, it ain't ever coming back. And so if he does that, God bless him. That is a virtuous man to say, we were wrong for 50-something years. We're going to fix it.
Yeah. Amen. No doubt, man.
Well, it's always great seeing you, man.
Absolutely, brother.
What time are you on Mondays?
We're going to be doing
8:30?
7 o'clock to 8:30, what time do you finish usually? 8 o'clock?
I'm usually done by, 8.
8, so they could pop on for the last 30 minutes and catch the live Q&A. With Kirk each week, and then we also, once people sign up for the class, and it's free, everything's free, but they can also then get copies of the recording if they want to go back and watch earlier. So yeah, man, thank you for mentioning that. Thanks for what you're doing, bro. Keep up the great work, and everybody watching.
All of my people are staunch, conservatives for the most part, but they believe in truth and autonomy and patriotism. And so I know they would love and desperately need what you guys are giving them. So God bless you, brother. Like always, thank you so much for coming on. Great insight and information once again, and makes my show look better and me smarter than I'll ever be because you're coming alongside and throwing in the good material that I need to hear because I don't know what I'm talking about. God bless you, brother.
Hey, thanks, man. And of course, it's making you look. I mean, look at my picture. That's a dang good picture. I mean, that's going to make any show look better. And
I know.
And that's how
we're going to just leave it there. We are not cutting back to you live. We're going to leave. That's going to be the image embedded in their brain.
It would be shocking, shocking in a bad way if you did that. Yeah. All right. See you, brother.
God bless you, buddy. See you. Thanks, Wyatt. Let's get back to the good camera, shall we? So here I am, got it all back on, got this on, got that on. That was Rick, of course, our as he likes to be known, Tom Cruise from Top Gun, the original. But I hope that was interesting to you guys. I told you, I bring him on because he is an expert on the Constitution, but he's an expert on the Founding Fathers. He's an expert on the Revolutionary War period, and also just the way that they interacted and who they and what they wanted this country to be. Remember, they invented it. They thought of it. They came up with it. I know it was hundreds and hundreds of years ago. I know that things have changed. I know that it's a different type of country, and they couldn't have imagined how big and powerful it would become. I'm sure that's true. But the principles are still true. As I said when I was talking to Rick, there are principles that are hard and fast, that are immutable, like mathematics. 2 + 2 is always going to be 4, even if it identifies as 6. Doesn't matter. It's still 4. And that's really the key. What did the Constitution actually say? What did it give us freedoms and to do? What did it say we couldn't do? And what does this decision, if they reverse Roe and basically give the states back the right to make their decision based on what their community, their group wants, their area to represent, to believe, to stand for, they are given that freedom and that power back to the people. And that's the key. We are the government. We are the United States. We are the rulers. We are the ones that make laws and vote for them, or are supposed to be able to. And now we find ourselves even wondering, do our votes count? So that should never have happened, and that should never have been ever in question. So these are all the difficult and sticky positions we find ourselves in as Americans now, because of what has happened in the last few years, and also in the understanding that when people have gotten their way through violence and through tyranny, that's why the founders created a way for citizens to defend themselves and to strike back, especially against a tyrannical government. So listen, I hope that was interesting to you guys. I'm trying. I know the lips were off like a Clutch Cargo show, a bad Clutch Cargo, at least those lips match, but it could have been the Japanese overdubbed version of Clutch. But we're still working on trying to figure out why we can't get these things to sync, because it doesn't look cool, and I don't want to look like an amateur, but I am. And so we're still growing and still learning. If you would like to support what I'm doing, as far as somebody who's trying to go defend faith in America and the freedom of religious beliefs in public and private, and also to be in churches, conservative areas, maybe sometimes they don't have the money or enough money to even be able to afford it. But through people's donations, I can still go out and bring comedy, but truth and teaching. I spend whole weekends in churches doing teaching on Sundays about critical race theory and the idea of, well, how does Christianity relate to these Marxist ideas, and how does it disconnect? This is what I'm about. This is what everything has become of my comedy, has become this, because this is what I believe God Almighty, who I believe in, has called me to do. So if you believe in that and you'd like to give, we're going to grow a group of militias of the mind, a militia of the mind of folks who will get T-shirts. We'll get things for those who sign up. I don't know if it's going to be a mug. Everybody does mugs, but we'll figure something out. But we're going to get ourselves an army of folks who will give a tiny bit every month so we can afford to not only grow this and make this more professional, but again, live events, and just congregate Americans who love God and love country together and continue to fight and stand for what we believe is true. That's what this podcast has become, started on my lap in my den 2 years ago because of COVID. So once again, the left meant to destroy us with the corona mandates, and God used it for me to start my little show, and maybe, just maybe, it can make a difference in America and maybe around the world. So thank you so much for coming out. As usual, thanks for all my regulars who talk amongst themselves and keep things going. Thank you, Karen, for keep sending all the links. I didn't get a chance to look, but somebody said that Benjamin Gregory's back. Welcome back, Benjamin. And I think Kit Kat is back. So we've lost a few of the regulars, but I think some of them are heading this way. If you're new, thank you for showing up. If you would like a link to the nonprofit organization God's Comic Ministries that will allow you to defend these principles and these ideas, then just say, I'd like a link, and we'll stick it there so you can see it and click it, and off you go, and you'll get that at the end of your tax return, on your tax return for a tax write-off. So anyways, Wyatt, anything else to say that would make any sense to you whatsoever, or are you benching something?
Okay, that benching part, I had a response lined up, ready to go. I was about to say it, and then that binging line was like, well, that joke's gone now. Thanks so much for that.
Well, see, the thing about a professional is whatever curveball they throw me, I just step into it and rip it down the line. So you just don't have that skill set.
And you know what? If you keep that mentality going, sooner or later, you'll be the talent of this podcast.
Well, you never know, son. You never know. I'm shooting for it, but you're going to be a hard act to follow. Speaking of a hard act to follow, thank you again for showing up. We will be here next Sunday, and I hope, or Monday, and I hope that eventually we figure out how to get these lips synced, and then I can bring in even more interesting guests. But God bless you. This is God's Comic Brad Stine. Remember, PC, free is liberty. You are part of a militia of the mind, and we will fight well like warriors, and we will go down as men and women of honor. God bless you. See you next Monday.